A quick disclaimer before we begin, the PEMF podcast does not contain any medical advice and the content provided is for informational purposes only. If you have any health concerns, please visit a healthcare professional. Welcome back to episode 15 of the PEMF podcast.
And welcome back to episode 5 of PEMF Talk, the PEMF mini-series where we answer your PEMF-related questions. If you want to hear your question answered in the next episode, make sure to leave them under this episode if you're on Spotify or in the comment section if you're on YouTube. And we'll make sure to answer them in the next episode of PEMF Talk. So our first question comes from episode 12 on Spotify. It's in 2 parts, so we'll go for the first bit. Does it matter where on the body the Celerate applicator is placed? So if you have a PEMF device, does it matter whereabouts you place it?
Okay, so it all depends what you're trying to achieve with it. But if you are using a localized device, and in this question, I'm assuming they're using the Celerate localized applicator, it will matter where it's placed in terms of if we're trying to treat arthritis in the knee, then we're going to want to put the Celerate applicator directly or a localized PEMF device directly on that area. The most obvious place is to put it in the site of pain. The PEMF devices, depending on the intensity of the device, will have a certain field range anyway. So if we're treating the area of pain, it's going to be effectively treating like a foot, 2 foot, 3 foot from that area, depending on the intensity. So if we're trying to treat a specific condition or an area of pain, then yes, that it does matter where it's placed. If we're talking about sleep, for example, then ideally we would say put it closer to the head. So we're trying to change the brain activity and the brainwave frequencies when we're using localized devices for sleep. So our advice usually is on a bedside table if it's quite a strong device, or under the pillow if it's a bulky device, and you'd put it kind of one side to the pillow, and then you can change your brainwave frequencies for sleep.
Okay, great. So the second part of the question, does it matter how I position it in terms of the polarity when placed either on the body or next to me at bedtime?
Okay, yeah, so polarity is a bit of a hot topic, which we'll actually discuss in another PEMF podcast. But the simple answer to polarity is no, it doesn't really matter. It's been assessed by a number of different doctors and people looking at different clinical trials that have been done on the subject. And really, the way that a PEMF device works is you have north-facing and south-facing side of the coil. You're effectively going to get the magnetic field coming from one side, going around the device and back in the other side. So if you flip the device and get the south-facing or north-facing, you're exposing yourself to the same magnetic field, if that makes sense. There was something online that we read that was saying that pain is better to be used from north and for sleep is better to be used from south, but we couldn't really find a legitimate study that was linked to that to suggest that was real. So our advice to that is no. The most important thing is that it's close to the area that you're trying to treat.
Okay, great answer. We'll go on to our next one. It comes from Spotify once again, and this time episode 11. Hello, I've recently bought a Celerate and have some questions, please. Can you overdo it? We'll break this one into 2 questions or 2 parts again. So can you overdo it?
Yeah, so it's a good question that comes up quite a lot. And actually, there's no way of overdosing. There's no evidence to suggest that you can overdose on PEMF therapy. Specifically with the low medium intensity devices, so anything like up to about 1,000 Gauss, you could pretty much apply that all day, every day, and there's no ill effects that would cause. When we're looking at treating ourselves with like a 7,000, 10,000 Gauss, super high intensity device, we wouldn't recommend that you use that all day, every day, because it actually gets a response from the muscles. So when you're using those, sometimes it seems even like having a small workout. So, we wouldn't recommend that you plug yourself into one of those for 6 hours at a time. But yeah, simple answer to that is no. There's no way of overdosing or overdoing PEMF therapy.
Okay, great. Second part of the question then, how many sessions a day are recommended to deal with chronic stress with no particular health issues?
So with chronic stress, it's best to treat the head because we're trying to treat a neurological disorder. But again, it all follows the same principle of PMF. There's no need to apply a PMF device for 24 hours a day. What happens within the body with PMF therapy tends to happen within the first 10 to 20 minutes. So the blood becomes more separated, it travels around the body a lot easier, the cells are treated and they get a more positive charge, they open up cell membranes. All of these things tend to happen within the area that you're treating within the first kind of 10 to 20 minutes. And those effects tend to last anything like around 8 hours, sometimes longer. So people will sort of say, if I sit on this for 3 hours, I'm going to get to my goal quicker. Actually, what we would recommend is doing 3 shorter treatment sessions and spread them out throughout the day so that we get a hit of PMF therapy, we get those benefits, they stick around, and then in the evening or from lunchtime, maybe we do another session. So 2 to 3 sessions a day if someone is in a chronic or acute stage in which they want to fix quickly. But anything else, it's 1 to 2 times is absolutely fine.
Okay, great. We'll go on to our next question. This one actually comes from YouTube and episode 4, which was about intensity. I'll quickly give you a bit of context. I believe these people were in a bit more of a clinical setting. And their question was, what minimum intensity to be used, or what is the minimum intensity that should be used? So what might that be, maybe in a more clinical setting perhaps, or maybe home as well?
So in clinical settings, again, it kind of depends what you're trying to achieve with the device and whether you're using the device solely or if you're using it as complementary therapy. So we have people that buy devices and what they want to do with it is they want to complement their treatments that they're offering. So maybe they're doing acupuncture or maybe they're doing massage therapy and they want to put their client on or lay them on a mat while they do the treatment. And actually, you don't need a super high intensity device to do this. So you can get a lower intensity device, maybe anything from 20 to 30 Gauss in a full body session, while they do massage, or like I mentioned, like acupuncture is quite a popular one at the same time. And what that's going to do is that's going to complement the therapy they're offering and it's going to warrant better results. If they are just applying PMF therapy, so if they are just a PMF specialist and they want to get short, sharp, quick results, and maybe they're seeing sports guys girls that are coming in that have, twisted their ankle and they want to get back playing, and you're going to treat them with solely a PMF device, then we would definitely recommend going much higher intensities and put a number to that. Anything that's going to warrant the muscle response from the body. So that's from about 2,500, 3,000 Gauss and upwards. So as I say, using it for clinical setting on its own, you want to go for super high intensity. If you're complementing other therapies that you're already doing within your clinic and you just want to accelerate those results, then you can get away with a lower intensity system.
Yeah, another great answer. We'll move on to our next question, which was from episode 12 once again, which was our sleep podcast, which obviously seems to be quite a popular one. So if you did miss that, make sure to go check it out. This one came from YouTube. Does the mat treat every coil in the body in the 20-minute session? I asked, as when I test the magnet over the mat, it's only vibrating over the coil.
Okay, yeah. So to explain this a little bit better, that when the Celerate specifically, so this customer's talking about a Celerate device, but this is also similar with other devices that we have. Sometimes you get a test magnet that's provided with a device, and that tends to be on the higher intensity devices because lower intensity devices won't necessarily move a magnet because they're not strong enough. So you will only really get a response from the magnet when the magnet is placed directly over the coils or very close to the coils. And the reason for this is that is where the intensity or where the magnetic field is the strongest. So it's not to say that a meter from the mat you're not getting any intensity still. It's just that the intensity that you get from that wider area is not quite as strong as it is when you're directly over the coil. So to answer that question, the magnets that are provided really are only to test that your device is working and the coils are all connected and that the whole mat is still working. When it comes to the actual PEMF therapy and the magnetic field, you'll get a much wider treatment range and it's just not being picked up on those magnets. You can actually use an AM frequency radio to see the treatment range and the magnetic field strength. So we do send those out as well, not when people buy devices, but if they want to just see how far a device will have a magnetic field. It's something you can get on Amazon or eBay. You know, they cost about £4 or £5, and you just put it to AM frequency and you turn the device on and you can put it over the device. You'll hear it clicking, and as you move it away, the clicking will get quieter and quieter until it stops. Once the clicking stops, that generally shows you how far away from the mat you'll get treatment.
Okay, great. Maybe just to reference the first bit of the question, just for anyone who might have been wondering. So saying that, will the mat still treat all the cells in the body?
Yeah, so like I say, it's not that the only cells in the body that will get treatment are the ones that are closest to the coils. I think that's what the customer's trying to get at. You will get a certain amount of intensity and a certain amount of treatment from the entire body. The reason that the Celerate device specifically has 12 coils put around the mat is that it's trying to cover the most amount of the body and make sure that in between those coils, you've still got a good level of intensity. So effectively, to answer that question, yes, it will be treating the whole body. You will be getting a full session from a full body mat with decent intensities. And the magnetic field is generally about a meter from a good strength intensity PEMF device.
Cool. So we'll go on to our next one, which once again was from episode 12 and from YouTube. Great podcast. I have a query that was unanswered with Grace, which if you don't know who Grace is, she has been featured on our other PEMF talks, if you want to go check them out. My Celerate mat has 12 coils. Does this mean each coil is 50 Gauss?
Yeah, so some systems, it all depends on how they are presented and how they're marketed. And it's a great question, and it's one you should be asking every manufacturer. Because what some manufacturers tend to do is they call their mat 50 Gauss, for example, and they have 5 coils dotted around their mat, and each coil actually only gives you 10 Gauss. So they are kind of doing a bit of a naughty there. You know, that's not how we like to present systems. That's not how we like to advertise, and we would always be honest with customers. Like I was saying earlier in this podcast, when you move away from a coil, you lose intensity. You don't ever really add the intensity up. It doesn't really make sense. It makes sense for the manufacturers because they're able to advertise something that's stronger than it actually is. But if you put a magnetic tester over that mat, you'll only ever get 10 Gauss. The maximum you'll ever get is 10 Gauss. So specifically for this question, I think someone's talking about Accelerate again. The Celerate device is one of those unique devices that does offer 50 Gauss on every single coil that it has. So if you put a magnetic tester over the coil, on that mat, you'll get 50 Gauss. Whereas we could advertise that mat as 600 Gauss if we added all of those 50 Gausses together. But again, it's a little bit missing in information there. So we like to present it as it is.
Okay, great. I thought that was quite interesting, so I wasn't sure about that either. But we'll go on to our next one, which was from TikTok, which was our first clip we ever actually uploaded on there. If you're not following us on there, I would recommend it because there are some shorter, more maybe bite-sized clips about PEMF on there. But the question states, does this same machine work on dogs? So I think they're more talking about PEMF in general, but I believe in that video you were wearing the Celerate on your arm and referencing the Celerate.
Yeah, so PEMF devices will work on dogs, animals, humans, just the same, as it's a human organism. It will do exactly the same. It will have the same benefits. So we have a lot of customers that say to us, I'm buying a device for themselves, but can my pet cat or can my pet dog use it? And yeah, that's absolutely fine, and they will get the same benefits from it. You actually tend to find that animals are quite attracted to PMFs. When you turn a device on all the time, they'll kind of like hover and gravitate towards you because they can feel the energy coming from them. Specifically, again, for the Celerate, it's a good little device for animals. The device itself comes with a strap. So, you know, if you've got a dog with bad back or back legs or something, you can apply it. There's no need to plug it into the wall or have any cables with it. So they can wander off and sleep in their bed and do whatever they want with it attached. So, and that will be treating away as however long you've set it for. So in answer to that question, yes, PMF for dogs and animals is just as good.
Okay, great. Once again, the same clip as the last question. Does it only target the areas where you use it? So kind of similar to what we said a minute ago, but does it just only target where you use it? I think that once again, they're talking about the Celerate applicator.
Yeah, it's a great question. Again, you know, it's the PMF or the Celerate applicator is a localized device, and we call it the localized applicator because you're not effectively using that full body system or full body mat with it. But the treatment area is quite wide, so we've measured that up to about 2 to 3 meters. So it will be affecting the area that it's on more because that's where the most intensity will be. And as you move away from the device, you lose intensity, but you will also get some systemic effects because you will getting that treatment area of like 2 meters away from the device.
Yeah, another great answer. But if you do want to hear your question answered in another episode of PMF Talk, or if you have any PMF questions at all, please just make sure to message us, leave a comment on any of our social medias, and we will make sure to get back to you and even answer it in our next PMF Talk episode.
Thanks for listening, and tune in again next Wednesday for our next PEMF podcast.